Jyoti is also, Jyoti is here from the city, also helping in facilitating notes and bringing in your chat messages. And I am being assisted by Lisa Porras, who is a city senior planner. And we are a group of 4 here, taking in all your comments and making sure that we have the rich conversation we need. So before we get started, Annie, is this looking fine on the display on your end?
Looks good. Yep, you're all set.
Awesome. So what we want to do before we get into a conversation and hear you, we want to go into go ahead and type www.menti.com or scan this QR code, and you'll be asked to fill in a code. It has a question for you. Once you do that, we are asking you a quick question, which will basically give us an indication as to where your priorities are in terms of discussion on the open space topic. And do people have that? Menti.com and the code?
And Geeti, you can go ahead and click on the link above. That code will be in the next window as well.
Not here above, right?
Yeah, pan up just a little bit.
I just want to make sure people have got the number.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I go into the link here.
Yep, click on the little pop-up. Yep, there, click on that. Yep.
Thank you, Annie. Okay, so what we want to know from you is which strategies, when we talk about open space and environment, which of these strategies are you most interested in discussing this evening? We'll discuss all. We just want to get a sense of where do you see value in spending more time. We have 15 minutes to discuss open space. We'll take another 15 minutes to discuss mix of uses. So looks like community open space network definitely has a priority, but Green Street is equally important. And you seem to be more confident about the Pulgus Creek restoration, and definitely we'll talk about it, but doesn't have to be in as much of a detail. Okay. How do we get back, honey?
Go back to the Miro tab. It's your web browser. It's another tab in your, you have it just to the left.
No.
Go back to your window, your web browser. Yeah, so to the left, the middle tab, go up to the top. There you go.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's important for us to definitely get your thoughts, and I will encourage you to raise your hands and start giving your thoughts. There's lots that's already being received in the chat, so help us understand these strategies that we spoke about. What's your reaction to it? How does it align with your vision for this area? We talked about Green Street, we talked about Community Open Space Network and Pulgus Creek restoration. Feel free to raise your hand to help share your thoughts on any one of these strategies, and we'll kind of make sure that we capture your thoughts under the columns here. Anybody with thoughts that want to go ahead? Sam, yes, I need to unmute you.
Yeah, I will want to comment about on Old County Road. I don't see Eastside Connect continued down to Britain. It had to stop. Tim, you might be able to help me which street it actually ended on, but it was close to Hall, I believe. They ran out of money for undergrounding utilities and widening the sidewalks. And the vision was always that future developers would continue Old County Road all the way down towards Britain, and in particular commercial, where there's an underground under the Caltrain to connect the east and the west. But that undergrounding utilities and widening the sidewalks and installing bike lanes, and greening green streets, that's a really important feature of Old County Road for our east side community that wants to be able to walk around. And right now, there's a lot of places where there is no sidewalk and there's just power lines and, driveways and plantings, but there's no sidewalk.
Absolutely, Sam. We have definitely made that I realized that as we studied the area, and Old County Road has also been identified in the bike master plan as a priority for bikes. So the possibilities for Old County Road, both for bike and ped, and connectivity to for the connectivity to downtown is really important, and we'll keep that in mind.
Just to further clarify, for our neighborhood, that could be the way kids get to school. So besides
Great point.
jobs, I mean, there's just the practicality of people being able to get around, and we don't have that capability everywhere in the city right now.
That's a great point, Sam. How do we make it safe for all age groups?
Yep.
Yeah. Other comments, thoughts on ideas around greening of streets?
Can I jump in here?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's Tim. To what Sam said, I think the Eastside Connect went to terminal, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it hasn't. They've kind of quit doing that. Either they ran out of money or whatever. And I mentioned this last time, and I know it may seem like a broken record, but this is more to the city as far as the fees and the fee structure for getting money to create more green space and things like that. I in my experience of living here for almost 20 years now, and dealing with a lot of the process with the city and things like that, is that we're promised a lot of things, and things get put into a draft EIR and then the final EIR and all that, but we don't see the benefits of that. And a big example of that is the berm, where we were promised that we were going to get planting all up and down the berm, and we got minimal planting, and we're still waiting on things. And Caltrain is pointing at Santrans, and Caltrain's pointing at the city's pointing at Caltrans and the San Carlos Transit Village developers and so on. So there needs to be a much cleaner nexus, and also the city needs to step up to create some community benefit fund that is going to create money. For example, the Corporation Yard. That would be an awesome spot to create a green space with. Where's that money going to come from? How are we going to get that money? Well, I think one of the things that's missing here, and maybe this isn't the place to talk about it, but you have all these great pictures and all these great plans, but I got to say, I'm a skeptic until I see, where's the meat? Where is this going to come from? And so I love it all. I think the courtyard, I would like to see more green spaces in here. It would be great to have a community pool, a skateboard park for kids, another field, all those kinds of things. So, let's get a community benefit fund. I worked with Sam on that, and we spent a lot of time and effort trying to do that. And it just got poo-pooed by the city. They did not increase fees, nothing. So, and this is for everybody in San Carlos. These are things that can benefit everybody: a community pool, a skateboard park, another park with a field, whatever. So I'll stop there. Yeah.
Tim,
you have plenty of my comments from last time.
Yes, Tim, that's all valuable, and all those comments are getting recognized. This whole effort is to be able to have that vision framework and that roadmap in place, so that as funds become available, there is an opportunity to kind of implement them, and then as the developments happen, look for community benefits from the developers and look to actually implement them. So all this is valuable. It just takes time. I do want to say that ideas like fields and all might not be as kind of plausible here, given that this is really constrained in terms of availability of land. But there are a lot of other moves that can really make this a much more pleasant place. So thanks for your comments. Pat.
Hi, I don't quite understand how this group was built as open space plus mixed uses and turned into open space plus environment. And when the poll came up, I wasn't really planning on talking on any of those three. I was interested in talking on mixed uses.
We'll talk about mix of uses in another 10 minutes. We're going to focus 15 minutes in open space, 15 minutes in mix of uses.
All right, I'll be back.
Thanks, Pat. Thank you, Michelle.
So I have some of the comments to echo, Pat. I don't think that was clear at the beginning, but
Sure.
I'm one of the business owners on Terminal Way. And so a lot of, I think, of what is being said are ways that we can, improve this area too for our employees. I don't know if we see totally eye to eye with, what all of what some of like the residents and the city has in mind, but I think they're just focusing too on how we can create a harmony between the existing small businesses that are doing some really amazing things, especially outlined in that little area 4, and how we can, improve the safety and it just overall outdoor space for our employees. Because we do have, especially on Terminal Way, this is a lot of really small buildings and we don't have nice spaces, giant yards that we can create into, open workspaces or things like that for our employees. Even with along Terminal Way, there's not a sidewalk that runs the entire length of the street. So I think there are, just keeping in mind too, the ways that we can harmonize between the existing small businesses and what the future holds for the area.
Absolutely, Michelle. Yes. And finding that balance for this to be able to serve both is really important for us. And that's what's going to make this place unique. You don't want it to serve just one use, one purpose. Gail?
I'm a little bit confused. Is this the only time we're going to have a chance to comment? Because we're not even talking about the main part of the development. We're just going around about the soft stuff. And I want to talk about the environmental effects of the main project. Is that where we're doing this? Or is there another round of breakout?
Gail, could you explain environmental impacts as an actual remediation conversation? I'm not sure what you're...
I'm talking about the labs and the stacks and all that.
Right. We're not talking about developments at all here. We're just talking about, let's zooming out a little bit and as these developments are happening, the city is conscious that there needs to be a framework and a vision for the entire district in totality. Where are the synergies? How do things stitch in? So that, we're not talking about each of the
wait, so is it already decided that the biotech is coming in and now we're just talking around the edges?
I will invite Al to say something.
Sure.
Are you punting?
Hi, Gail.
I am punting.
Gail, maybe I'll try and take a crack at that. So essentially, this is like a policy document to plan for as these businesses come in. Now, these businesses, what we've had is we've had a bunch of applications for life sciences and biotechnology, and we've shown some maps about where those businesses are located and things in earlier meetings. And each of those businesses or each of those projects will be reviewed on their own in a separate process. So we'll look at, what's on their site, what kind of, is there contamination on the site? How should it be remediated? We'll have environmental documents for each, project and that kind of thing. So each of those projects will be looked at individually by you and the planning commission and the city council, and we'll have public meetings for those. But
Okay.
what we want to hear from you, Gail, is that environmental remediation is a concern for you, and why, so that you can identify that as an issue for us to focus on as we move forward with this plan. Does that make sense?
I guess so, but I have one more question for you to file away in your brain. How does any one of these proposed biotech businesses or whatever labs compare to the Gilead Sciences one? I believe it's in Foster City. How do they ensure the environmental impacts are not very great over there? I know you don't want to talk about that today, but I want to hear about that.
Well, I can quickly, I think I can quickly address that. So when we look at any individual project, we look at, well, what exactly are they proposing to do? You know, what kind of lab space is it? And what kind of, you know, studies or things that they're going to be doing inside the building. And then we'll look at the construction of the building and we'll see, you know, what kind of protections they have, you know, for the outside, for everybody else that's around those buildings as part of the environmental review of that project. So that's how
Okay,
we're
so
approaching
so
it.
that's later then. You say that's, I
That's-
mean,
Yes,
okay.
that's correct. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Ellen?
Thank you. And again, I don't know if this is the right place or where this is, but my concern with this open space and the Pulgus Creek issue is how is the staff that's working on this project and the consultants, with whom are they interfacing to be addressing, for instance, the vulnerability report that the Sea Change Group did in 2018 that identifies flooding and the risk that sea level rise will pose as different adaptation measures are taken out in the bay? Is it going to change the flow of Pulgus Creek or the volume of water? I know they've had problems already. So I just wanted to know what entities are being consulted on that end to make sure that the planning includes the future projections with regard to sea level rise.
Yeah, again, like Al mentioned in for the last question, it will be the goal with the vision plan is to really identify this as an opportunity and make sure as developments happen on either sides, they do proactively look at all of those challenges or opportunities, and you'll have a chance to weigh in when the actual private developers come in and propose their improvements around it. But this was important to at least document as a place where the city wants to invest time and money and expect change.
Okay, thanks.
Debbie?
Yes, thank you. There were 4 environmental issues that I wanted to ask about and propose some mitigations. The first is on air quality, because if you want people to come down there and walk around in the open space, they want to be sure that they're not breathing in polluted air. And if anybody's interested, just Google exhaust stacks on these buildings. And if you'll find out that one of them has already got an exemption to allow them to be 6 feet taller than they would normally be. And some of the exhaust that comes out of these biotechs are at 40 miles an hour, and there's multiple stacks on some of the buildings. So to the extent that the city needs to increase the height of the stacks to keep the polluted air away from the ground level where people are walking, whatever the experts say on that would be great. The second thing is the biotech buildings in the flight path of Heller Airport. In Millbrae, SFO's land use committee recommended to Millbrae that they not allow biotech buildings in the flight path because of the risk of biohazards being released. And Millbrae declined to follow that. So we would ask the city to consider whether or not any of these labs in the flight path, what would be the emergency plan to deal with that. The third thing other people have brought up is flooding on Pulgus Creek. With the type of climate change that we're having, we have atmospheric rivers, dumps a lot of water upstream, and then comes rapidly down toward the area. And I see the pictures that show this beautiful like Pulgus Creek restoration where the water levels are low. But living right on the creek, I can tell you water levels have been as high as 10 feet high. And some people might not realize that in some places PG&E lines run underneath the creek. And at one point, redwood trees fell down and uprooted a PG&E line that was, that it took 10 hours for PG&E to get here. The final thing is ground subsistence. Burlingame recently won a lawsuit against SFO for the ground sinking in part of Burlingame caused by the weight of the buildings. And this area, the buildings are even closer to the bay than other buildings are. So to the extent that the city could remediate that by not allowing underground parking or underground infrastructure, prone to flooding. That would just make the environment much safer in the area. So thank you very much.
Sure, Debbie, those are all great points, and thanks for bringing it to our notice. Ground subsidence is kind of a result of actually water tables dropping and water being pulled out of the aquifer as we use our groundwater, and then how the ground sinks. So it's kind of a multiple prong approach that needs to be taken to address that. I'm going to invite Debbie, you had your hand up. You want to share your comments, and then we move to mix of uses. Or was it Susie? Sorry, Susie. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I want to sort of double down on the part of what everybody else has said about making sure the remediation is done on what's already problematic there. I mean, I think Dalmo Victor was there and has all kinds of pollutants, and so there's always been a pollutant problem, it seems like. And then, of course, whatever's going to come out of these biolabs, nobody's going to actually always know what the problem will be. So I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of them, but I realize they're probably going to happen. But I really hope that and really request that things be looked into heavily, and things like the flight path. I mean, I didn't even think about that. That's amazing too. So that's all. I just wanted to reiterate that's the safety issue for whatever goes in.
Absolutely. Thanks, Susie. Thanks for your comments. We want to now move on to mix of uses. That's another topic that we want your input on. Again, we've shared ideas as to how we're thinking and recognizing the different districts in this within the innovation district, and we need to be thoughtful about it. So definitely want your thoughts and just even how we're reading this area. And then of course, we're kind of wanting to introduce some activity nodes and hub of kind of vibrancy in this place. And we'd love to get your thoughts on it. And I see, Michelle, you have your hand up. Would love to get your thoughts. You'll need to unmute yourself.
I think Michelle already spoke, and so did I. So you can take my hand down.
Okay. Well, Michelle and Pat wanted to speak on mix of uses. Michelle, can you?
We can take our own hands down, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Pat, do you want to go?
There it is.
I'm concerned about area 4. I get the feeling that there's an interest in turning the Terminal Way road into condominiums. Some people have commented that way, or more housing, and I'm anxious to preserve it the way it is with the small businesses. And I don't know, I don't know what the East Side residential community thinks about that, because I've only been hearing it from this this presentation. But I do, I like the bike paths. I think they're great. Pulgas Creek would, anybody that wants to pay attention to it, I think is wonderful. But I don't want to see, I don't want to see an industrial area go the way of people complaining about noise when they've moved in, knowing that that's what that area is. I just don't think it's fair. That's it.
Yes, but I think that's definitely important to recognize. There's a certain character and a vibe and a success to this, and that needs to be balanced with the concerns that are there in the adjacent neighborhood. So thank you for sharing your comments. Michelle, can you, or do your hand is, I'll wait for
Yeah,
you.
so
Go ahead.
I echo it. I think, in the previous presentations too, it's shown that, especially that area 4, it is a really rich, diverse group of businesses. I mean, we have just on our street alone, there's, man-made ethical diamonds being made. There's aerospace parts that are supporting the International Space Station and SpaceX and Starlink and all of these really Perseverance. And, we've got plumbers. It's a lot of skilled trade that's really important to the fabric of San Carlos, but also just, I think what makes this a really rich use area. And it's especially that area where you have a really high density of these small companies that are supporting a tremendous amount of employees that live and work in this area, that are stakeholders in this area, that, depend on us for the well-being of their family. I mean, my company alone, most of our employees have been here for over 15 years. And, we've done internships with local high schools and things like that. So I think that it's making sure that stays, that we find a way to create a balance where we can increase, some of the green amenities that we're talking about, but also making sure that we're doing a good job preserving that, and investing in our area. And I'm not saying that some of our buildings couldn't use a little bit of facelift or clean up weeds or things like that. There's definitely some of those, and even we've asked for the city to do some things, but as it was echoed earlier, there hasn't always been the greatest response. So, but I really do think that there is a balance that can be struck where everyone benefits from the amenities that we're talking about without risking the loss of these really amazing small businesses that are essentially, primarily in this area because that's your greatest concentration of them.
We hear you, Michelle. Definitely. I think those are really valuable points you're making. And that is the purpose of the study, to be able to recognize those strengths in the area and then kind of work off of it to understand the next moves that are a balance. Thanks, Michelle. Tim Hilborn, do you want to?
Yeah. So first and foremost, like 150,000%, please do not allow any Catalyst sub areas north of Branston Road. Do not. That area that you guys have there needs to go to a number 2. Okay, not not a number 1. A number 2 minimum. People on Hall Street, Montgomery Street, they should be up in arms about that. I'm surprised I'm not seeing more people. So that area that is east of Industrial and north of Branston that you have marked as the number 1, that needs to be at least a number 2. Maybe even a number, yes, right there. That should not be there. That is going to be so invasive to those neighborhoods. So please, whoever is in charge of that, turn that into a 2 or even a 3. And to a couple other people, I think what Michelle was talking about, as far as the businesses in that area, I agree. And for a lot of people here, I know this is up in the comments, but the San Carlos 2040 housing element study, that's looking at, things along East San Carlos Avenue and kind of in that area there. And also, a little bit around Hall Street as well, kind of creating some buffer housing. And I think it's much more important to have, a buffer of more multifamily duplexes, fourplexes or whatever, as opposed to like, a bigger industrial area. So, as long as those businesses along Hall Street remain small, and it is like a transition area, that's okay. But we definitely do need to see a mixed use of housing somewhere in this area as well. And, I think it would be best to have it buffering Hall Street and those places, but there has to be a balance. So anyways, again, no Catalyst number 1 sub area north of Branston, please.
Thanks, Tim. Linda, do you want to share your thoughts? Linda, are you there? Not sure if you've been able to unmute yourself. Let's, Gail, did you want to jump back in with your comment, or is your hand raised from the previous? Gail Rabe, R-A-B-E.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My comments have to do with compatible uses. And specifically with respect to uses near Hall Street, and whether any future plans involve housing or commercial. Hall Street needs to be buffered from impacts of new development, and that would include things like property line setbacks, building heights stepping down to prevent loss of privacy, shadowing of rooftop solar, buffers for noise and odors, glare, night lighting. Again, you know, I'm not advocating for the loss of the businesses that are there, but if there are future changes and if the city does any kind of new development, that really is critical. And I'm not sure at what point in this planning process the neighborhood is assured that those things are going to be put in place. How do we ensure in this planning process up front that all of those requirements for making sure it's compatible uses are put in place? What's the assurance to the neighborhood?
Yeah,
That the city is going to do that.
Gail, I think all of this effort here is definitely looking to recognize and understand the concerns and asks in terms of what is the right move there. We're already, you can hear it in this breakout group itself, there are both sides being represented and they're sharing their thoughts. So it's not an easy solution. And we will have to be very thoughtful and careful about how we kind of really enable both a buffer opportunity, a mix of housing opportunity, but not necessarily hinder the viability of businesses that are thriving. So,
right. Well, my point is not to drive out the small businesses, but this is a plan for the future. And so if the city makes zoning changes or whatever, allowing for new development, the neighborhood needs to have assurances now in this plan that these kinds of mitigations will be put in place, right? Step down heights, property line setbacks, no incompatible uses in the future. And so that's
Absolutely.
my question. And I'm not sure you answered how, at what point we get assurances in this plan that those mitigations will be put in place.
right. I think just by the fact that we're identifying this area as a transition, those are all that you talked about are various kind of tools and design strategies to think both in a physical form, what might be the transition, but also we're hearing that there's a use also that has to be thought about carefully to be able to make this a much more appropriate transition. Al, did you want to add?
I think that's a good explanation. In this plan, the important thing is to make the comment that you just made so that everybody's aware that this is an issue that is of importance to you and your neighbors, right? And so one of the things that we did, for instance, on East San Carlos Avenue is it used to be industrially zoned, right? Back in 2009, the city looked at that area as part of our general plan update at that time, and it was rezoned from industrial to mixed use neighborhood zone. And at that time, there were ideas about transition area setbacks, making the buildings lower as they face the single family neighborhood. We developed a part of our zoning ordinance called performance standards that looked at noise and odors and vibration of industrial businesses or commercial businesses next door. So that we heard you back then, and those things were actually put into zoning. This plan is sort of identification of the issues and the policies moving forward, and then we'll implement those things as we go forward with changes in zoning or these development projects. So I hope that this is what you're doing is exactly right. You're identifying, hey, this is an issue that we're concerned about, and we do want to get that in this plan.
Yeah, thanks, Al. Yes, that definitely helped. We have just a couple more minutes here before we'll ask you and invite you to go and talk circulation with the next group, and we'll have other people join this group. Any last comments, questions from anybody here?
Yeah, can I just jump in here real quick? And I posted this a couple times.
Sure.
Is that, I'm hearing people say, how are we going to get guarantees to mitigate all this? The only way that you're going to see even a fraction of this stuff is showing up to the planning commission meetings and the city council meetings. You've got to show up. If people feel really strong about this, you have to show up to those meetings. That's where the policy gets debated. That's where it gets decided on. That's where it gets voted on. If you don't do that, if you don't participate, they're going to walk all over us. Just saying.
Thank you, Tim. That was a great segue. You are welcome to stay in this group if you want to keep talking, but we'll have new people floating in, and they must have already started coming in, and we invite you to join the next group, which is discussing circulation, and a lot of great ideas being debated there. So thank you, everybody. I will take a break from sharing the screen while we get new folks.
Yeah, and Geeti, I was gonna say I can run the poll this time, and then it'll just be a little smoother.
Perfect. Lifesaver. Thanks,
Yeah,
Amy.
no worries. Yeah.
If anybody needs help moving to the next group, let us know. We are definitely seeing a lot of new names pop up. And will you be sharing your screen for the first piece? Yeah.
Yep, I'm gonna pull it up right now. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Great.
Perfect. Okay. So we'll have to first tell people. Okay, so I hope all of you had a great discussion in the circulation breakout group. And thank you for kind of continuing to stay on and help us debate, discuss some of the open space and environment strategies, and then the mix of uses. So we do have two buckets of strategies to talk about, and we'll take 15 minutes to talk about the open space, and then we'll move to mix of uses. And if we want to stay longer, we are happy to stay longer and keep taking your comments. But before we do that, I wanted to do quick introductions. You've heard me speak. I am I'm principal from Perkins & Will, leading the consultant team. And Annie, as my colleague, she is helping take notes as we speak, and she's in the room. She's raising her hand there.
Hello, hi.
Yeah. And we have Lisa Porras, who's the senior city planner, and she's going to help us navigate some of the different questions you'll ask. And Sujuti from the city is also here helping and assisting us in the conversation and taking notes. So thanks to all of them. And with that, what we wanted to do was do a little bit of an icebreaker. You probably did that in the last group also. We would like you to go to www.menti.com and use the code that is on top over here. And go ahead and tell us which of the strategies that we have listed you're most interested in discussing this evening.
And I think we still have some people joining us that may have just come out of circulation. So just as a quick note, we're going to be talking about open space and environment strategies first, and then do not worry, we will discuss mix of uses after. So we're first just doing a quick icebreaker poll about open space and environment strategies. And you can go to menti.com and then type in the code 94250671 to vote.
Perfect. Oh.
And
We'll give it a minute or two.
yeah, I'm not sure. It looks like it might be hung up. I'm sure people are voting.
Hmm.
Let me stop my screen share. I think I'm frozen on my end. One moment.
I see some response. I can go back and start sharing. Annie.
Oh, I got it now. Okay,
You got it?
sorry. Yeah,
Good.
sorry everyone. So please, looks like we have one person voted. So you're going to Menti, MENTI.com, and you'll use the code 94250671. And these are strategies that we had shared earlier. So the green streets, the Pulgus Creek restoration, and then a community open space network. And folks are either ambivalent
Okay.
or we're
We
having
can-
some technical difficulties. So we can move on.
We can move on.
Yeah.
I think this was just meant to make sure we get a sense of where the conversation wants to be.
Are you ready to pull up? Great.
Yep, I'm pulling up my screen. Let me know when you can see it, Annie.
I can. Yep, you're good.
Okay, awesome. Well, okay, welcome everybody. Talking about open space and environment first. We did share ideas with you with the presentation, talking about 3 strategies, understanding how we can change the image and the identity of the streets that exist right now, and really start reflecting a more sustainable and a green a street environment, which could be through tree canopies or through the really trying to enforce the stormwater treatment as a place where there's vegetation and generous sidewalks and more lush kind of nature in the city. And then we talked about opportunity to really use Pulgus Creek as an asset and really enhance that area and make that a pleasant experience. And of course, the community open space network was about looking at ways to weave through these blocks to make it a lot more walkable and a safer environment for people at all age group to actually experience different paths and routes to kind of navigate this place. Would love for people to kind of share their thoughts of how do these strategies really align with your vision for this area? Are they good? We want to hear good too. If you feel there are concerns with any one of them, or if you have questions, please raise your hand. We'd love to get your thoughts. Gail, your hand is still up. Did you want to say more?
Me?
Gail Coos.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I thought I also heard someone mention the word school. Is there a school plan for this place? Because I just think it would be
No.
terrible to put
No.
children in a polluted area.
Gail, the comment was primarily to say that the underpasses in the East Side Connect ideas that were proposed as a project gives kids a safe route to navigate their way below the rail line and get to schools on the other side. So it was more about connectivity to the other downtown area
Okay.
and the rest of the city.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Thoughts from anybody, please raise your hand or Annie Suzuki, any thoughts in the comment? Oh, there it is, lots of hands here. David Chusman, do you want to unmute yourself?
Hey, sorry, I just joined the room. Are we only talking about open space or are we talking about mixed use?
We'll talk mixed use in another 15 minutes. We're talking open space first.
Okay, I will lower my hand.
Okay, that's fine. Debbie, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask how the stormwater management plan and sea level rise is consistent with building in this area. Because king tides already now back up and flood parts of 101 up where Britain enters into the freeway.
Okay, thanks.
Go ahead, Debbie.
that was my question, just how is the concept of sea level rise consistent?
Yeah, absolutely. I think,
point.
Debbie, it is a very important challenge that we have to recognize as we think about strategies, even highlighting it and mentioning it and making sure that we weave that into the narrative about how Pulvis Creek restoration needs to address some of that, those challenges, I think is important for us to kind of, we won't come up with the design and the details for it. That's not the kind of scope of this effort here, but knowing that as we look to improve that area, that aspect and that element is kept in mind to address the sea level rise challenges and flooding challenges is what we'll make sure we get documented in the vision plan. Hope that helps. You answer your question. D. Wand. Your hand is raised.
Yes, hi, it's Dimitri. So if we're chatting about open space, I think that the school site, we've talked for years about expanding Loreola towards Old County Road. So there's definitely possibilities there for some creative thinking on the part of the city to expand the park and get some more green space there. And that's something that we would support. And I think that there's real potential. I don't see any other proposals other than some small part of the parcel that Alexandria has for open space. What about the other areas? Are there considerations for other places for open space?
Yeah, Dimitri, right?
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, definitely there isn't a whole lot that we can expect this area to offer in terms of a large open space. So we have to be thoughtful and careful and weave it in wherever we can. All of that stitched together still definitely delivers a very pleasant environment. So talking about the rail spurs and the other routes that we are showing here, the discovery path, these are all kind of weaving in. You're right. Besides what's shown in the Alexandria real estate ideas already. And if we have the opportunity to look at cooperation yet, if things do align, that's will be the only other one in this district. There really isn't a whole lot in terms of a large open space.
I suppose there's some potential to ask Alexandria to develop more open space along the giant parcel they have from industrial to Old County, or to buy a parcel, a smaller parcel, in order to create some open space. So they've got deep pockets, and that's certainly something that potentially could be done. Whether it's to help the city buy the school site or do some sort of trade, or some other site along commercial, or along the railroad spur kind of trail, if we can make that happen. Some site there that would. I think there are other possibilities. I'd like to see a little more creative thought rather than say these are the only possible things. I think it is possible to ask some of the larger tenants to pitch in there.
Yeah, I think, Dimitri, definitely looking at places which create a more connected network is important. And if there are parcels that we are missing that are an opportunity, we would like to know. Again, we're only kind of putting ideas on paper here as a first pass to start the discussion. Who's delivering it, how it's being delivered, that's not necessarily, we're not there to be discussing that as yet. But if you think there are other parcels here that should be picked up, let us know, please.
ET, I would suggest maybe asking if there's anyone else who wants to speak to open space, but then we could move to the mix of uses.
Sure, yeah.
Which is very related. So we can continue to talk about these open space opportunities.
Yeah, anybody wanting to share any thoughts here? If not, we'll move to mix of uses, because I know there are a lot of comments, thoughts wanting to be shared there. I don't see any hand raised. So moving on to mix of uses. Spin my vote here, make that as big as possible. So we did share, David, you had your hand raised. Was the for open space?
No, it's for mix
Nope,
of
David, yes, you did say that previously. Okay, so for mix of uses, again, this has a definite purpose right now, and it's focused around more jobs, employments, which are industrial of all different scales. And we know there's new kind of development coming in, which is focused around life sciences. And we are hearing pretty clearly that there is an opportunity to not kind of consider just that one single use for only one single group of employees, but there's a chance here to look at a bigger picture where there's an offering for the larger city of San Carlos and see what might be not just an amenity for the users there, but it's a shared amenity and community amenities and neighborhood amenities for it to feel like a more complete district with more offerings of active users around cafes and restaurants, or daycare has been kind of brought up many times, and also look for opportunities that are places to gather for people and avail services for the neighborhood. So our idea was to kind of start identify, you can't kind of think about it as being spread out in the entire district. So it's important for these businesses to kind of find the core and the node where it might be able to thrive. So for us right now, the way we're reading it, kind of really looking at how we tap the energy from downtown on Laurel Street as foot traffic navigates its way in the underpass, Arroyo Avenue underpass. There's an opportunity for Commercial and Old County Road to have some retail offering or active users, and then a small segment here along Industrial Road, and also look for opportunities around the Corporation Yard if it does end up being an opportunity for a community use that does move the Corporation Yard use. That's one. And then, of course, your thoughts on the districts, the way we are identifying it, and we will look at highlighting their unique character and strengths. Thoughts? David, go ahead.
All right. I want to say that it is a terribly missed opportunity how we have rolled out housing to be added to this area. If you're talking about the bigger picture, we're adding over 1 million square feet of office space. And as we all know, it's the job housing imbalance that's causing the housing crisis in this area. And this is such an opportunity if we're rethinking the area, but we're not talking about improving how to get more people housed. It's pretty ridiculous. And there's a current general plan process going on in the city of San Carlos. So that was also a good opportunity to combine it, and hope it's not too late. From what I've heard, it is too late. Okay.
No, it's not, David.
So I'll reassert that we should explore housing in terms of mixed use above retail, or upzoning certain areas of current residential so we could have more residences. And then that'd be great.
Thank you, David. Absolutely recognize the fact that housing as a need needs to be addressed across the city. But what might be the opportunities here? It's definitely a little bit of nuanced thinking that needs to go in place to make sure that people get a choice to live close to their businesses and their offices, and at the same time, what is the right kind of environment to allow for these businesses to thrive. So it's not too late, and we are already, Lisa Porras, she's kind of from the city, is helping us navigate, or not navigate, but be able to have sessions with the housing element update team to share ideas and share notes. And we definitely kind of collaborated in coming up with strategies and thinking holistically. So your thoughts are definitely important, and thanks for voicing them here. Any other hands raised?
I think Jennifer Rossi.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think that adding housing could be sort of a win-win. And last meeting that I was at, we talked about maybe having a tiered approach so that there's not giant buildings like right on the edge of the residential, but rather like it slowly gets bigger, and then the biggest buildings are a little bit further away. So we're not all in shadows with office people looking down on our backyards the whole time. So maybe having like a mixed use of housing or townhomes or something along Tanklidge might be maybe helpful in that. So I agree.
Absolutely. Thanks. Thanks, Jennifer. Yes. That's the reason we've kind of identified this more lilac colored area as a transition. We have to be thoughtful about both the form, shape, heights that we propose here as a strategy, and also the uses. It will kind of bridge the two different, very disparate uses. Gail, did you have your hand up? Okay. Any other comments, thoughts?
Yeah.
Yes, Dolores.
Yeah, I have buildings on Terminal, and I'm in the transition area. So, and you're talking about multi-use as far as possible housing and stuff like that. Are you then planning on eminent domaining the businesses that are there?
Absolutely not. That's not one of those strategies in the toolkit that we're so far thinking, Dolores.
Okay.
But getting your thoughts, what's your thought? You have a business there, and it definitely needs a certain kind of environment for it to be successful.
Yeah.
Tell us what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that this is such a plan that has possibility of bringing 7,500 people to the area, when you've already got problems with parking, you've got problems with red light runners, just speeding, everything else, and you just don't have there's just not enough room for all of this, as what I see. And I think it's very ambitious, frankly.
Yeah, Dolores, I think this is your concern as well. It is important for us to think holistically. That's why the whole kind of this project, it called itself an innovation district, because the word district is as important as innovation. We need to have a district approach. We need to kind of think about all of the challenges here, and no one project can address them in isolation. But if there's a shared kind of both a responsibility and a strategy, like you talked about parking and red light jumping and concerns. If that's too much traffic and people are rushing, is there a way of navigating the multimodal streets? Can parking be thought about to be as a shared parking district? So we have to understand some of the challenges that are kind of cropping up here, but at the same time know that to be able to allow a different future with more intensity of use, we'll have to have a multi-prong and a district approach. There's more holistic thinking, and everybody has a shared responsibility to kind of contribute their to the solution that we bring forward. But right now, where we stand, you're right that adding more businesses might feel like, can the roads handle the traffic? But exactly. Is there a way to shift that, to think about what are the other modes that you can think about for people to navigate? And how do we allow that so that it's a win-win for new businesses, but also for the existing people and the businesses?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Other comments? We have 5 more minutes here before it's so happy to get any thoughts. For us, it's important to hear these voices and know some of the concerns, because that makes our thinking that much more robust. And it's not an easy solution, and it's we need to be able to weigh all the pros and cons.
I think Gail has her hand up again, and then Jennifer.
Gail,
okay. Geeti.
Yes.
Why did the city hire your company? And I was wondering how much we pay you, how much you're being paid for this total project.
Sure, yeah, I'll address that. Gail, help me understand what's the concern you have with engage a consultant to be hired. You have to your first but the city is seeing a lot of change in this area, and the city is getting developments that are being brought forward by developers, the life sciences developers primarily right now, but there's hotel also being proposed. And the city wants to kind of step back and take it on upon them to really think about the district. And this is a large part of the city fabric. It's 150 acres, and they want to be thoughtful about it. As new developments come into existence here, is what is the overall future that we want to determine for this place, so that that's not a piecemeal kind of approach, somebody improving a small little segment of a sidewalk here, somebody planting 2 trees there, somebody providing open space there. They want to have a district-wide approach. So that's where we come in. We have consultant team here, transportation, economic assets and infrastructure. And for us, it's about just kind of broadening our horizon a little bit and helping the city come up with a roadmap. So that's why we're saying it's a vision plan, it's a framework, so that as new development comes in, the city is guided as to both what changes they should expect, what changes they should ask for, versus what is their responsibility to deliver, so that as a full build out, it really delivers a complete whole.
So you don't have experts on mitigation or anything like that. You don't have suggestions for solving problems.
We are coming up with a vision and a blue picture for the next 2-3 decades or even more. And of course, it'll constantly be revisited as things are appropriate. But it is important for the city to understand what's the roadmap. But no, we are not coming up with, we don't have consultants that are talking about remediation.
So you don't tell towns and cities, this is not an appropriate place to develop all this?
Not for this effort. We do it for other efforts maybe, but that's not the scope.
And I just wanted to add, maybe I'll put my email in the chat, Gail, if I can talk to you offline and give you a little bit of background on this. But just for real quick, because I want to make sure that everybody else gets to comment on the mix of uses.
Oh yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, no. I'd absolutely love to give you some more information, but this was a project that really came about through City Council direction. And it resulted because there were a number of projects, large projects that started to submit applications to develop in our city.
Yeah.
So because of that, and there's about 10 of them, and there's some good information on the project website that you can look at, and it sort of identifies those. And I can explain all that to you, but really this came about as a need to kind of develop a holistic plan for the area rather than have each project individually, one by one, kind of just come in and be a collection of buildings. So
that's kind of what Al suggested was going to happen though. Each one was going to be evaluated separately.
So, evaluated, yes, Gil, but I think the city will have this framework to kind of inform and make sure that the asks and the ideas that they're putting forward really stitches together for the whole district. We are at 8:01. If there are no,
I'm sorry, I've had my hand up. I had my hand up
yes,
earlier
sorry.
also
Yes,
for the
please.
open space piece, but I guess you didn't see my hand.
Yes, I'm sorry, Jennifer, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the open space piece because your green arrow goes down. I can't tell what street that is. Sorry, I missed the very first part. But I wonder if you've thought about creating a green path through the west side parking lot in some way that can connect with the underpass at Arroyo, because there's going to be it sounds like from what you guys have shared, the biggest buildings that will serve the most people will be over there. And so having a green path on that side, it seems like you really, you guys have really thought about everything in the dotted lines, but I think there's some things on the other side that could also be considered and attached. And also you've connected the green lines to Loyola Park, which I would love to see improved to match the nice parks that we have on the west side also. But I also think that connecting from like where Kelly Moore is right now, you could walk to Burton Park just as fast as you could walk to Loyola Park. So I wonder if creating some connections to Burton Park would be also part of the ideas that the city might have to kind of connect all east-west as well as north-south. to kind of think about the holistic approach to our whole city rather than just the impact on this started.
Yeah, good point. Definitely. As we think about ideas here, how do we look beyond the extents of the study, but leave clues for the adjacent context? That's a really valid point.
Because that part is going to be developed, but all of our city will be impacted. And the people who are going to go there, I think we want them to use Laurel Street also, right? And Burton Park's real close to Laurel Street. So I think that it's all connected. So I'd love to see the city kind of expand its thinking to east-west as well.
Absolutely. Good point. Thanks, Jennifer. I don't see any more hands unless I'm missing anything, Annie. Oh, yes, Michael.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. This is maybe borrowed from the other room a bit, but there's been a bunch of comments about the underpass at Arroyo, and I would just like to maybe echo a lot of what perhaps has already been said. That it's a very useful throughway for for us. Actually, right before the pandemic, we were like I would ride my daughter to school, right? My daughter and I would ride to school in the morning on her bike, and that was actually that was a much easier ride for us than even trying to get across El Camino, right? Just because there was, the crosswalks work better. And if you're talking about increasing access, right, through the different spaces, I think, leveraging that space better and that throughway better, it would be a great part of it.
Absolutely, Michael. We definitely recognize it. I think what might have got lost in our explanation is that we're really thinking about a loop, like a district loop that stitches downtown and its activity and its life back through the Arroyo Avenue underpass and onto commercial and then an industrial, but really more of a improved, enhanced environment here. But absolutely good point. And we have Arroyo in mind as we think about it, as we think about the connections. Okay, I don't see any more hands. Well, we want to thank everybody for taking the time. It's all very valuable. Everything here is informing our thinking, and we still have some ways to go. So please stay connected. Alan, Lisa did share in the beginning that there are study sessions that are going to happen with the commissions and then with the planning commission and with city council. So those are opportunities also for you to kind of come forward and continue to give your thoughts and feedback. So with that, thank you so much. Annie, are we going to the main room?
Yeah, I think we'll be pulled back to the main room. You are welcome to carry on with the rest of your evening and go do something more exciting. But if you would like to stay, we'll go back to the main room.
Thank you, everybody. I'll stop sharing.